All right. So let's get into it. First of all, thank you so much for being on the show today. For those that have never had a chance to see you or hear from you, why don't you give us kind of like the little down and dirty about your background and how did you even become CEO of Twitch? Like, where did you come from?
How to become CEO of Twitch. All right, so quick story of my background, and I usually go back in time um, uh, because I do think sometimes it's funny. Whenever I interview someone for work, I often start by asking, "Who are you?" More so than "What have you done?" Of course, what we've done is often, you know, a you know, you know, a representation of who we are. Okay, but often what we want is, "Who are you?" And so if I go back to college, I actually was a computer science and a theater major because I always felt like there are these two sides of me, and as with any, they're not just two sides of us; there are many sides of all of us. And I ended up deciding to use my tech um, uh, um, training and worked for a while, and then realized I didn't really understand computers, so I went and got my PhD in computer science. Interestingly, at the time, I thought it was a very pure source. All my friends, I went to Duke undergrad, and my friends, they were all going to be doctors and lawyers or business school. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be more pure. I'm going to get a PhD in computer science. It ended up being a good financial choice too. But then I got my PhD in AI. I worked at NASA for 7 years, where I eventually ran all the computer science and AI and robotics research at Ames, which is in Northern California. Went to Google as a Google for 9 years and did a bunch of stuff. I was responsible for Google Book Search, but then relevant to this world, I ran product and engineering at YouTube. In fact, was there when we almost bought Justin TV and did not, and then left Google and went to a startup next door. Came to Twitch about 4 years ago to run product and engineering, and at the time it was Emmett, myself, and Sarah Clemens, basically responsible overall for the company. When Sarah left, I took over some of her responsibilities, and then when Emmett left, I basically outlasted them. So how did I get this role? I just outlasted them.
Fair, fair. Well, it's great to have
Endurance,
you.
endurance.
Good life lesson there. I'm going to let me actually see if this works now that I'm putting you vertically.
Now you're just
Perfect.
showing off.
Yeah. Look, I set up a bunch of scenes to prepare for this, all right?
Yeah,
Like, I
yeah.
gotta up the setup. So I want to start by talking a bit about TwitchCon. So I mean, this has been your first year acting as CEO, but people started to get to actually meet you last year when you were president of Twitch. And I think that this year was a very, very different energy about TwitchCon, about the community sentiment. I think that a lot of us really kind of see that and feel that. Tell me from your experience, what was different for you about TwitchCon? Like, why do you think that there was such a different kind of atmosphere surrounding TwitchCon this year?
Um, so first of all, attitude towards things is contagious, right? As people are feeling good, more people feel good. As people are feeling bad, more people feel bad. There's an energy that flows with people. Um, uh, I and it takes time to change sentiment, I think. And so I do think there was a lot of positive energy this year. I think I think the announcements, help. I think over the last year, we've also been trying to be much more out front with the community. I mean, my engagement with the community is part of that. But at the beginning of the year, we released a summary of the work we're doing. We were planning for this year. I think we've had a lot more face to face. I think the our comms team has been very proactive about how we think about releasing information. We live stream now. When we release something, and I think all those things add up over time because it slowly builds trust. Um, People get to know people more, and we've had a number of people more out front. So I think it's not just TwitchCon; it's really building up over time, and I think it helps that I think there, certainly the simulcasting announcement was received very positively. I think people are excited about stories, and doing something with clips. So those things can then build on itself.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree. And I think, last year, it was, I think like your presence actually made a huge difference because last year, you were doing a lot of like behind doors meetings with creators and hearing their feedback. And this year, you were very much like, living the TwitchCon experience from like a streamer's perspective, right? Like actually being on the floor and being a part of live streams and events and even parties. What was your favorite part about TwitchCon? Like now that you've really lived that authentic experience.
Well, yeah, the interesting there are two answers. I think of that in two ways. Um, Actually, no, I think it's the same answer now that I think of it. Um, Even when I was observing TwitchCon, for me, the beauty of TwitchCon was always the diversity of people expressing themselves. I remember when I first went to my first TwitchCon, um, I was not before I came to Twitch. It's not I wasn't a big Twitch user. Emmett was trying to recruit me, and I went to TwitchCon in San Jose with my son. And if you haven't used Twitch a lot, all you need to do is go to a TwitchCon, and suddenly you feel Twitch. You feel the flamboyance, you feel the energy, you feel the personality, you feel the diversity because it's not like, oh, I'm at a gaming conference. It's, oh, I'm at an everything conference because you see the diversity of people that are there. Um, and I think you see that. And that's still, it's the diversity. It's the so many different people with a smile on their face finding where they belong with their group. So that's kind of the same. It's really kind of magical.
What is like a common thing that you heard from streamers because you got to meet and talk with so many streamers. I'm sure people came up to you, and did you get like, some of the same kind of questions or comments as you were, meeting with creators of all different sizes and experiences?
Yeah, the interesting thing is, I think it goes to your point about the positivity, right? This year, I'm gonna think through what's one or two things that pop out, but less pops out than normal because so often because they were much more positive, it was more about their life, what's happening with them. It wasn't like, here's the here's the feedback I have for you on Twitch, right? That like they didn't have this angst about this one thing that they needed to talk about. So often I talked about their stream versus, you know, this particular feature, this particular issue. Obviously people were very enthusiastic about the simulcasting announcement. They were glad. It's the thing that jumps out there. It's not clear that and many people would say this. I don't know if I want to simulcast, but I really
Mm.
appreciate that you will let me simulcast if I want to simulcast. Right? And I've always felt like that's an important one of the challenges has been when you tell someone they can't do something, they don't know why you're prohibiting them from doing it. It's not that they care so much about it. They don't like the fact that you're prohibiting them from doing it. Right. And so that certainly was a positive thing. I think the other thing that jumps out, I think, people are doing better in ads now than like they feel like it matters to them. A number of people come up and said, oh, I care about I'm making money from ads now. So there had been this angst in ads because I think our creators weren't making enough money and they were like, ads don't matter to me. So why do I bother with them? I think that was positive. Um, they like the idea of stories. They still don't know if they actually like stories because it was just out there, right? So so they were enthusiastic about the idea of stories, and they're enthusiastic about the idea of some type of feed experience with clips. But again, it's mostly enthusiastic about the idea of something
Mm.
rather than understandably tangibly how this will help them.
Do you think that that's like an education gap where you have this idea of a feature that's going to help X, Y, or Z, but then, like you said, people like the idea, but they're not sure if they're going to use it or how they should be using it. Is there a gap there?
And so, first of all, I think one of the challenges is for it to matter to them. Um, Things take time in Twitch to manifest themselves. Because Twitch is this system of connections and complexity, right? And so, to be honest, even as we build things, the first thing we build won't necessarily help them yet. And in fact, we need to keep making it better. I really like stories. I would like to have videos on stories. Anyone who uses stories, I'd like to have videos, right? Um, and I'd like to have app mentions. I'd like to have conversations. And so the first version often helps, but doesn't fully realize what was in our mind. To me, guest star is the perfect example of that, where some people really like the first version of guest star. They will use it, but most people are like, I don't know, or they'd say, yeah, I used it, but they don't keep using it. Um, uh, and it requires us to continue listening and pivoting and adapting and changing, because figuring out what's right is hard. And I think, the pivot to stream together is a good example that I've had a lot more enthusiasm about that rather than just bringing up audience members.
Yeah. I mean, and I definitely think that's fair. And I think like the transition, not transition, but the inclusion in something like stories. I felt like stories was like the biggest surprise for me this year, which was the announcement of this feature. Twitch for a while was very staunch against any sort of short form content adoption because of the position of we just want to be the best live streaming site. That's our bread and butter. Let's just do that. What went into this change? Because we have featured clips now. We're going to have featured like clip discovery where you can actually consume that content. We have stories being, a new feature here. What changed?
Yeah. So in general, the old idea, I'll talk for a second about the ideas I heard when I showed up at Twitch and for the first 2 years. And this is not necessarily from creators, it's also from folks at Twitch, right? So there's a big effort in VODs, right? And often there was this idea of, oh, you should focus more on short form content and be more like YouTube. Okay. Meaning there's a
Mm.
lot of value. I want one place to go to put all my short form content. Okay. And then that way someone can come and get all their content. Um, and I don't think that is our focus now, in fact. In fact, I think that concept of trying to replicate what YouTube does or TikTok or Insta is a flawed concept. Because in fact, I think if we actually replicated what they did, then we would become a bad place for live streaming. So I think the key thing is getting clarity around how to invest in short form content, but understand. And this is one thing I know I did this earlier in the year where I kind of I wrote something for the employees at Twitch saying it's important for products to understand in the end what is their core product, the core thing that will not change. And I think for us, live is the foundation of what makes Twitch magical. And so there's this question of, can we use short form content to help retain users and amplify and enhance live? Or is this an alternative of now we're going to do something else? And the example I use is we know right now both YouTube and Instagram are hard driving their traffic to shorts and reels.
Yeah.
Okay. You can't use YouTube's mobile app without landing in the shorts feed. And that's okay. I think shorts is a great thing for YouTube. Okay. If Twitch did the same thing where wherever you went on Twitch, you ended up in our short form feed and you couldn't help, and then you get stuck in the short form feed, okay, then I think that would be problematic. And I think some of the ideas that existed before, at least internally, really was to replicate what these other platforms are doing. And I think what we got was clarity that we can still use it, but use it judiciously without losing the North Star of what makes Twitch Twitch.
Yeah. And I think that's super valid. I think so. My perspective for the stories and the featured clips discovery, obviously, for featured clips, it is a discovery mechanism where you can watch the best 30 seconds of someone's content. Browsing through live streams is just, it's a very encumbersome endeavor, and it's not very attractive. And you're going to see a lot of things you don't like before you finally find something you do. So clips is a great way to kind of showcase your best moments and, for a user, be able to actually, consume content and also discover someone new. And by what
Hmm.
I mean by that is when you have a few minutes on your phone, you're at the bus stop, you're commuting, you're on the toilet, where you consume short form content, like when you pull up and you have a few minutes to spare, you're not going to go and watch a live stream because you're only going to get a few minutes of something that's totally out of context. Whereas now you can pull up and instead of going to TikTok to go and spend your few minutes, now you can easily spend a few minutes on Twitch and actually consume content that is pretty entertaining. Was that part of like the mindset for kind of changing the not only just like the discovery, but for the user side, the viewer side, like actually being able to go to Twitch to watch something quick and entertaining?
Yeah, absolutely. The phrase we use is shorter, more frequent mobile sessions. Right now, Twitch takes a fair amount of time. Um, I think one of the challenges that we need to work on for Twitch and for our creators is because it, enjoying live streaming takes a fair amount of time. And then people have something happen in their lives and they get out of the habit of watching live streaming regularly. And then in 4 weeks, they have some more time, but they don't get back in the habit, right? They just go on about their lives. And I think an important thing is keeping that connection they have with our streamers top of mind. Even when they're busy and they don't have as much time, can they still feel connected with that streamer? And I think short form, by getting shorter, more frequent mobile sessions. I also think, interestingly, the making it easier for people to get a lot more content on third-party social media, because the best way to stay top of mind is to see this person that you have an affinity with on social media. And for that matter, simulcasting, because you see them when you're on TikTok and you say, oh, yeah, that's right. I really enjoy what Loco has to say. I haven't seen her in a month, but she's live now. Why don't I go check her out? Right. And so, to me, I think we need to make sure that as people have less time, how do we maintain that emotional connection they have with a streamer? So then when they have more time, they can pull up a chair and hang out with them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think stories is a great way to facilitate that community connection. It may not be a vessel for discovery, but it's like you said, Twitch is a community platform. And I think that's
Mhm.
why like the communication and transparency aspect of Twitch has been so important for creators. And that's why, creators have been so loud about it, is because yes, it is a company, but it also is a very specific type of culture and it's very community based. And so if creators and their communities feel disconnected from the decision makers, then you get this huge divide that we saw over like the last few years where it seemed like Twitch couldn't do anything right. And no matter what was happening internally, there was no wins to be had there. What was your experience or decision to kind of shift gears and bring Twitch and the community back into uh, where we're having conversations, you and I, right here on our stream and in front of the Twitch community? Like, this isn't staged. Like, you did not plan the answers to these questions. Like, what has it been like for you as CEO to tackle this problem?
Yeah. Um, so first, sometimes you like to take credit and act like you're prescient and you can see these things and you've thought through everything,
Yeah.
right? But of course, sometimes, and there may be some instincts in there, but sometimes things happen, and they happen because they're easy and they're natural. So, uh, I started streaming because I thought it'd be good to start streaming. Okay, and then I kept doing it because I enjoyed it. Um, it just so happens that streaming is natural to me as a person in terms of who I am, and that ties into just who I am. There's a different world where, if I was 30 years younger, maybe I would have been a streamer, right? But there are a lot of streamers that are tech folks, right? This is why I mentioned me being in theater, because I'm actually very improvisational in what I do. Um, and so and then as I started streaming, it became very natural to interact. And so one thing leads to another, right? Um, and um, uh, and so a big part of it, if I had to say from my thinking, and some of this can be 2020 hindsight, um, I think on our platform, really matters that you're out front engaging with the community.
Yeah.
And again, this isn't just about me. We already started some of these things. We used to not talk about the launches we were going to do,
Yeah.
right? And that is sort of a traditional approach in the tech space. Don't pre-announce your launches, right? And it's like, well, no, we can talk about what we're thinking about doing. I think given our position, and sometimes we can talk about it and then decide not to do it. There are things that I've talked about that I might decide we don't do because you get feedback from streamers. And I think a big part of it is understand. I can tell you from my streaming, there are all sorts of things and spending time. There are all sorts of product features now that I understand very differently than I did before. Right? I can go and say, no, let me tell you why that. I'll use the simplest example. Um, Stream Together had a 16 by 9 group capture. I don't know if you ever played with that, Loco. They have
Not the
this
group
group capture
capture.
Okay, they had this group capture URL, which basically has everyone's picture but yours on it. Okay, with the idea then Twitch will adjust, is it 2 up or 3 up or 4 up? Sounds like a great idea, right? You think you'd use it. The problem is they gave you a 16 by 9 frame that you have to fit inside a 16 by 9 frame with your picture. And those two things don't work well. If they would have done it as a 9 by 9 frame, then you could adjust it and put your frame next to it. Okay. I know that because I tried to fit a 16 by 9 frame inside a 16 by 9 frame. And I pointed that out. And the designer, like, oh, yeah, I guess that makes sense. But you only know that by doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Right.
and that's what I really have liked to see, and I think a lot of the community has really enjoyed your journey as a streamer. And also, when you're on someone else's stream, you're gonna see the tech difficulties that we run into that
Yeah.
sometimes seem inexplicable. And I think it's so important for the decision makers to walk the walk, right? To actually like live it. Like, not did they have to full time stream? No, but at least now you know what it takes to do an IRL stream, or how to have guest collaborations, or rating and setting up your tech and all that stuff that goes into it. And I think that ultimately makes Twitch much more better at the decisions that are made. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of again that positive feeling, because the things that y'all are integrating actually make sense. Whereas some of the things in the past few years are like, well, like moments is like one that I talk a lot about because the idea made sense, but the way it was implemented did not make sense. And I think that's why there was such little adoption, even though creators really thought that they liked the idea. Like you said, right? Like you'll hear people miss moments or chance, but then you'll see the data and say, okay, well, they clearly didn't use it. They just like that idea, right? So I do think that it's so beneficial to have like the people up top, like you have some experience and really kind of like be in a streamer's shoes, right?
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah,
part of this is, I can do it in part because it's fun for me.
yeah,
Streaming takes effort, but there's also a lot of reward in streaming. Um, and there's a trade-off there, right? Not everyone, it's for some people it takes more effort and the reward isn't the same.
yeah,
And so it works well where if I was working all the time I was streaming, I'd be exhausted because in fact I already have a full day job, right? And if then I was streaming at night and I was considering it work and I was IRL streaming as I was considering it work, then I actually couldn't do it, right? And it was because it was fun, which also for most people that stream, yes, it's work, but they started it when it wasn't work, when it was fun for them. And it just so happens that it's fun for me. So therefore it actually works out well.
yeah. So I want to talk about simulcasting because this is something that Twitch has changed gears on a few times in the last year. Where a year ago we got the announcement that you could simulcast to mobile first platforms like TikTok, but there was still a restriction to sites like YouTube. Um, this was a very exciting change. I know that there's some creators already simulcasting. I know that you were on with Harris Heller while he was simulcasting. What Why did y'all finally change your mind on simulcasting?
Um, so in general, there's been this progression, okay? And I think if I had to go back in time, I think one of the challenges is the concern or fear about what happens as we make changes when you can't predict the future. And
Right.
that's a very rational thing for a company to have. Um, the exclusivity provision in the partner agreement is an example of that, right? Which, and really, that is part of this arc because, in fact, the simulcasting came from getting rid of exclusivity in the partner agreement, which was like, oh no. Um, it was something that I pushed hard on because I said, I don't understand why we should be affecting what they do when they're not on Twitch. Um, it takes time for organizations to adapt to change because this is just, oh no, but what if? What
Yeah.
if? Right? And part of this, it's the same thing actually with live streaming. It's very natural. I didn't answer your earlier question as good as I could have because one of the things I should have said then was um, accepting that bad things can happen and it's okay. And in fact, the fear is if I'm out here live streaming, eventually I'm going to say something that someone will twist in some fashion, okay, to like whatever. And that's the nature of live streaming. And the reality is, if I'm out here enough, then eventually, whenever I do say something that it's a little bit off and it's misheard, it's not as big of a deal. But if I'm not out there a lot, then one misstep, people are going to intuit something. And so,
Right.
similarly, what happens if? So, with simulcasting, it was sort of a um, uh, move the organization along. Um, and learn as we go along. And so, I was the one that pushed for the TikTok and Instagram. At the time, it was talked about, well, can't we just allow simulcasting completely? I mean, why not? What's the downside? What's the risks? I feel good about where we ended up. And I think it was a lot of back and forth. I feel good about some people still don't like some of the limitations. I actually feel pretty good about the limitations in terms of where Twitch wants to be. But it was an ongoing process of trying to honing and thinking through this and then that and then this and then that to get to the right point. And some of it is just like getting comfortable. Yes, it's going to be okay, right? It's going to be okay. The best way to do it is understand what's the right solution long term and then head there.
Okay, so let's talk about what are those conditions. So as part of allowing simulcasting, creators must not diminish the quality of their stream on Twitch, right? Like it can't be lesser quality to watch their Twitch stream. They have to not have any sort of like blatant direction or sending people to the alternate streams, right? So if you're streaming on Twitch, you can't be like, go watch me on YouTube instead. Go watch me on YouTube instead. And then the third thing is you can't combine things like the alerts or chat on the screen. And so this is the point I wanted to bring up, which was with the combined chat. My position is that I think it's actually a subpar experience to not allow chat to be combined on screen because naturally the creator is going to answer something that someone on Twitch can't see. They can only see if it's on the screen at the time. Now, not to throw Harris Heller under the bus here. I'm sorry, Harris, but he did have a combined chat while he was
I
live with
found out
you.
afterwards. I thought I was checking before. I was like, oh no, I don't think he is. And then yes, I'm aware of that.
So, do you think that it's even reasonable to enforce that rule rather than the standard, which is whatever happens on your stream, you are responsible to moderate for, whether that's stream together, whether that's chat, whether that's something in game? Wouldn't that just be applied to the combined chat as well?
Yeah. So two parts about that. Um, you know, first of all, as we're running Twitch so that we're here 50 years from now, right? I do believe that Twitch is a very unique community, a very unique service, and I don't think it's the same as all the other services. I don't think we're the same as YouTube. I think the experience is different. Um, uh, and there's nothing wrong as a business in saying, no, we want Twitch to continue to succeed and grow. Okay. Um, now, y- you can debate about whether or not what's good for the overall ecosystem. Okay. This idea of what I'll call a meta community where the platform doesn't matter anymore and identity transcends platforms and it's all merged together. Okay. Interesting question of whether or not that is the right future world. It almost, since Twitch's like secret sauce is the community, right? That's what makes Twitch so special. It's and so now it's great. Now you don't even need Twitch. We're just serving the bits. Okay. So all you need is anyone to serve the bits. Okay. It almost certainly isn't the right thing for Twitch. I don't think it's the right thing for the Twitch community. I do think the community matters. Okay. I think identity matters in a community. Um, uh, and I think the interaction that you see back and forth, I think the fact that you see the same people and you recognize their names and you see them on different channels matters on the platform. Okay. So I think it does matter to the users. It does matter for Twitch too, because our specialty is our community. That's why I kept saying community centric live. What makes Twitch Twitch? And so saying, listen, we care about the Twitch community and what's happening on the Twitch, as opposed to just saying the meta community where it's all blurred together and there's nothing about Twitch. Okay. Now, the other point you highlighted, it's one thing, and I do, and this was a huge factor in the decision. Okay. Um, to say, oh, you are responsible for controlling it in terms of something bad happening,
Right.
when in fact, I know you can't control it. In fact, if anything, one of our big challenges with Twitch is the fact that, and we've been moving on this, where we have a responsibility with you to help to control how people behave in chat. Okay. We need to keep improving that, because the reality is just saying, oh, your chat was, behaved badly, so we're gonna, ding you. It's like, well, if you know it's behaving badly, then why don't you take an action, Twitch? Why don't you help me make it better? And we invest a lot in helping you make your chat better. Okay.
For sure.
Um, and for us to say, and we know other platforms don't have the same ability we have in terms of, and we know they have different guidelines too.
Yeah.
Okay. And so if somebody behaves badly in your chat and I see it and I think that, then I can get rid of them, right? Especially now with phone verification, I have lots of things that I'm working on to help reduce ban evasion and all the issues that we get. Okay. That is not something I control on any other platform. Okay. And so in fact, I can't give you credit for like, okay, well, I know they have automata at the right level, or they're kind of responding. I don't know what you do there. Okay, because I have no idea. I don't know when you ban someone. I don't know when somebody's banned from a platform for doing something. Okay. So the reality is, for me to say to you, oh, but it's your responsibility. The one thing I know is you can't do it fully. And then if I actually hold you accountable, where I suspend you for 30 days or whatever for what someone in your chat says, already I'm concerned that I suspend you often. Okay, for small offenses, right? Already I want to kind of make sure, because a lot of people are trying to adhere to the rules, right? They're trying to figure out, how do I make sure I have a good stream? Um, and now I have this massive way, and I can go, oh, it wasn't my fault. You decided to do simulcasting, but I knew this was going to happen.
Mm.
And if the streamer said, but you knew this was going to happen, I said, yeah, no, I knew it would happen. In fact, I knew that people would brigade you on other platforms to get you banned on Twitch. I knew that people would do that. Okay. Okay. I knew that with confidence. One, that people would be doing things expressly to get you banned. Okay. And to harass you. Because now I just opened up a way that anyone wants to harass you, they can now harass you. Not only that, they can harass you by getting you banned on Twitch, your livelihood.
Yeah.
Okay. I would be responsible. The statement that says, oh, well, that was your choice. Okay. I would not feel good about that, because there would be lots of people getting banned on Twitch.
Yeah. I mean, it basically like could triple, quadruple the avenues where someone could troll you and, expose you, right? Like make you exposed. So, I mean, that makes sense. I think that like I definitely see your point, and I definitely understand from like a viewer perspective, like it's much easier to follow if they are able to see who the streamer is talking to. But yeah, I think that I think that makes sense for the most part. I know someone is asking about like combined alerts and stuff. Like, do you think that that's just too distracting again, like pulling people away from Twitch?
That is, I mean, again, all these things, part of it is like, you don't know until people start doing it, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the challenges in this is it is as you do this, right? There's certain things where it's like, oh, I don't know for sure. Okay, I'm pretty sure. Like this issue of combined chat being a area for harassment. Like I'm pretty sure that would happen. Okay. Issue with alerts, that's a good question. I think we kind of drew this line of saying, listen, let's make it about the Twitch community,
Yeah.
right? Whether or not over time we realize that's something that you could do differently.
Yeah.
Um, right now, there's something about I do want this idea of that identity of the Twitch community and celebrating the Twitch community and like people like alerting and doing all that with the Twitch community. I know I checked with some streamers to make sure that it was like possible technically to have the alerts different on different, and they said yes. The ones I checked with at least said it was, possible, because I didn't want to prohibit your ability to do alerts on other, right? And they said, oh yeah, no, that's possible, we can do that. And so my sense is there was a consistency here, right? There was a consistency of saying what happens on Twitch is about the Twitch community. That's okay. You're streaming to multiple communities at the same time, but we want what's happening on Twitch to be about the Twitch community.
Yeah. Um, do you want people to simulcast, or did you just want to like not have that as a restriction?
Um, I think there are so I don't it's not a single answer, okay? Um, it is probably there are almost certainly examples of simulcasting where I'd be like, "No, I'd rather they weren't doing that." Okay, but that's their choice, okay? But I'd rather not doing it. Um, I do think that, certain types of simulcasting will be good for the ecosystem, okay? I think it depends on the streamer, I think it depends on the platform. I don't think it's not clear to me that the ninja approach is the right approach for most streamers. It takes a lot. First of all, it takes a lot of compute power and other things to actually be pumping lots of platforms. Um, I think it is important so this is me hypothesizing what is going to be the right thing for creators. I don't know. Okay. And then you asked a good question, which is what's the right thing for a streamer and what's the right thing for Twitch. In general, I think for streamers that are investing in Twitch and want their community to be strong on Twitch, I have a hard time seeing something that is good for a streamer that won't be good for Twitch if they're
Right.
really investing in their Twitch community. I suspect if it's good for them, it'll be good for us. So then it really comes down to this question: is it good for them? Um, my sense is from talking to streamers, I'll use the TikTok as an example because I've talked to a lot of streamers that have been using it. Um, and if you have a following on TikTok, what it is a sort of free live up on TikTok that says, "Hey, I'm live now." Okay. It's not clear. Some people think that they get new users from it. It's not clear that you get new users from it. But as I've talked to folks, it seems clear that you certainly notify people that have seen you before and like you that they're swiping a TikTok and they go, "Oh, Loco's live right now. I didn't know that."
Yeah.
Right. And so it's sort of like, okay, that seems to make a lot of sense if you have a following on TikTok, right? That's a great way to get people to live stream. Um, I think it also opens up streaming to new people. I think if I had to say, I think one of the biggest challenges right now in live streaming is it is difficult to build a community when you stream 8 to 10 hours a week. I know this is something, you don't stream, you stream differently, and you have to work differently using Twitch to make it meet your needs than a standard Twitch streamer. And I think there are a lot of things we need to do to make it that you can build community, even if you're only streaming twice a week, 3 to 4 hours a shot. Um, I think simulcasting absolutely is going to be important for anyone that uses live streaming as an auxiliary means of engaging their community, which at some level, you do a lot of YouTube videos. At some level, your live stream is, an auxiliary way in which you engage your community. And
Right.
my sense is simulcasting almost certainly is a good thing for someone who is, creating in the manner that you are.
Right. I mean, and TikTok's a great example because when you're consuming that content, it's vertical. You're not getting the full game when you're playing, right? You're not getting the full experience. So if someone discovers you on TikTok, which I think TikTok is a great place for people to actually be exposed to more people, whether you're streaming or posting videos or both, then they can say, oh, well, I want a better experience. I want to keep watching this. Let me go to the Twitch stream where they get to see everything that's going on, right? They get a much better experience. I think my argument for Twitch to allow simulcasting has been, if Twitch is the best platform for live streaming, then ultimately that you're just exposing yourself to 10 to 20 times more potential viewers, and they will funnel down into the Twitch stream, and the streamer might even, like, end up focusing most of their efforts on Twitch anyways, because Twitch does have the best engagement tools for community building, and that's what Twitch is all about, right? And so at the end of the day, you want that exposure, you want to build that following with the right people, and then ultimately you want them to come to the place where it's all happening, right? And that's the Twitch stream.
By the way, and that goes because I've talked to a lot of the YouTube streamers that went over there and that stream on YouTube, and you know, pretty much every single one says, well, the community's not the same. Okay. And that is because I've described this many times. It's funny. It's easy. You see it with TikTok. And when I apply it to YouTube, people then go, oh, I get it with YouTube. Everyone sees on TikTok that nobody stays on a live stream. Like I
Yeah.
challenge someone to stay on a live stream for 20 minutes on TikTok because we're programmed to swipe,
Yeah.
right? And you're programmed to swipe from the VODs. Well, it's extremely acute on TikTok, but the same thing is true on YouTube because you're programmed to look to the bottom right at related videos every time you watch a VOD. Okay, that is the nature of watching a VOD. And folks, I was talking to Wake Wilder, and he was like, "Yes, that's exactly it." Like, I was talking to T-Pain the other night, and he was like, "Yes, I'm my worst competition because I have all these good VODs, and people see my cool VODs, and they go, 'Let me go check out the VODs.'" And so it doesn't. They have a huge funnel, so
Yeah.
lots of people pass through, but not as many stay. And then that's why community isn't the same. And that's one reason why with simulcasting, I was like, I don't want a flood of names, to be honest. I also don't want I think it's the wrong thing to have a flood of names with different, because then you lose that, it slowly erodes away. Because part of community, I look at mine and I see Ben Science Games. Oh, he's on my stream. And other people see these people. And when you recognize the names, but if you flood them with names from 22, like all the people passing through these other platforms, you won't recognize a single name anymore. It's just a sea of random people that you don't know. So I completely agree with your statement. I do think that we are the best platform for, that's why I use the phrase community centric live streaming when you're engaging with your community. And that's why I was like, yeah, so we need to protect our community because that is what makes us special.
Well said. So the last thing I want to say about simulcasting is we are not getting a good consensus on, is it multi-streaming? Is it simulcasting? Look, I did a poll on Twitter, and
Multicasting. People say multicasting, simulcasting.
simul streaming. Simul streaming might be the good in between. Okay, so I did a poll, and 3,300 votes put multi-streaming ahead by 2/3 of simulcasting. Can we go backwards here? Can we go to multi-streaming? Or
Multi-streaming. That way, I will say it's interesting. We use the term simulcasting internally. I think multicasting has been more common externally. Like Ninja uses multicasting. That's the word he uses. Now you've added this other thing, which is multi-streaming. Okay. I think that does, like, if we were to have a naming party at Twitch, I think I would have agreed with your poll that multi-streaming is a better name. So I'll see if I can start using that term.
look at this, chat. Look at this. We're making changes,
Yeah.
okay? One word at a time. I mean, it's kind of the same as what is it?
One of my persons says we should say multi-simulcasting streaming.
Multi-simulcast streaming. Love it.
Streaming. Multi-simulcast streaming.
I mean, it's like when streamers use the term donation, and it's not a donation, but then you have what, like, sites like, Streamlabs, they call it donation alerts, and it's like, it's not a donation, guys. Like, okay, I'm I've been doing this for 10 years, okay? I got a couple things to yell about here, but that is definitely one of them. Um, okay, so I want to talk really quick about embeds because that has been a really hot topic lately. And people like King Gothalion have been very vocal about how harmful it is for advertisers, for sponsors, and for fellow streamers. Now, y'all announced a bit of a change where if the embedded stream on a website is not meaningful, then it needs to disable autoplay. What would you define as meaningful? And is this like the solution to embeds, or are y'all still looking into it?
Yeah. So first of all, as always with these things, you have this problem where you can say, "Oh, this is good, this is bad," and then you try to define it,
Yeah.
and now you get into the middle ground. Of course,
Yeah.
this is the foundation of our problem with trust and safety because you can use an example of, "Oh God, they're an asshole. They should be kicked off." Oh, they shouldn't be, and then there's always a gray area.
Yeah.
Okay. And out of fear of a gray area, people often then just avoid like solving this egregious problem because they can't figure out exactly how to draw a perfect line. Okay. So I can tell you, I can't draw a perfect line because figuring out a perfect line is tricky. I think over time we'll figure out a better line. Um, I think the clear point here is you have a site that's getting a significant amount of traffic where the player is stuck there as an ancillary part of the experience that they are getting. Okay, and that is not what they're coming to experience, and it is not a meaningful part of their experience on that page. Okay, then so that now as you get into okay, well, tell me the pixel size, right? Tell me the and having volume off is a factor here because you're like, oh, okay, volume off, having scrollable. So there's a judgment call here. We looked through a bunch of sites to try and see it. We were able to kind of like when we looked at sites, we're able to say, no, I think that's fine. Like we didn't run into now the problem is now that we have the policy, people will start graying the area more because
Right.
the people that were abusing it egregiously. Okay. And now what they're going to do is adapt to agree to, have it a little less egregious. Okay. Um, it's a good question of whether or not one of the challenges we have is in our pipeline separating out the the viewer, okay, is a non-trivial thing so that you could understand a site because there's an alternative as opposed to turning off autoplay where you said, oh well, if you don't think that's a fair viewer then just don't count them
Yeah.
in the ACCV. That was more difficult and more time consuming to do. um, the question of whether or not we prioritize that or whether or not we have a good enough solution, I can't tell you because the challenge in this is always, I would rather use all of our engineering resources to find ways to help grow streamers,
Yeah.
right? That doesn't always work. Okay. And to provide safety, grow streamers and safety, right? And so whether or not we do the engineering work to provide a more fine grained solution that, just adjusts or counts ACC differently. Okay. I don't know.
So Twitch Drops has been getting lumped into this conversation a bit because of streamers that are either sleeping or doing reruns and are, taking advantage of Twitch Drops. A few years ago, Twitch actually made a statement against during the Valorant drops. And it seems like this is becoming more of a prevalent issue where the people who have access and they're the top slot, they want to stay there and get all the viewers. So they just start rerunning their content. Does Twitch plan to address or are they looking into any adjustments for the way drops are being handled?
Yeah, we don't. It is always something that we need to think of and scratch our heads and see. Oh, can we handle this better? There isn't something planned right now, but I'm aware of the challenge. And as always, this is this trade-off where you know people are doing things. You'd say in a perfect world, I wish this wasn't happening, but it takes energy and resources, and you determine the severity and the simplicity of a solution. In other words, in this time we kind of pushed and we originally we weren't sure we could come up, but then we eventually came up with a solution that we felt like worked for without, a ton of effort. So it's a good question. I don't have a definitive answer either way there.
Okay. All right. Well, I know we only have a few minutes left, so I just wanted to
No, I
ask.
don't have if I run over, it's fine. It's
Okay.
fine. So
Well,
do
I don't want to
whatever's
make you late for your next meeting, because I
you
know we
won't
had some tech
it's a
issues.
one-on-one with someone that usually will only take 15 minutes to begin with,
Okay.
and they're very flexible, and I have other time. I could do it from 12 to 1 my time too. So it's not the
Okay.
end of the world.
I appreciate that. I definitely want to be respectful. I wanted to ask about the like looking forward for Twitch, right? Because we're nearing the end of the year, so this is the end of your first, calendar year as Twitch CEO. How would you describe your experience, you know, doing this as CEO?
It's been a lot of fun. I said this often that I've never been one to plan where I went in my career. I didn't. Some people like I want to get here, so I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and I never did that. And so I didn't plan this. Is I didn't come to Twitch to be the CEO. Um, uh, but at various times, folks, the opportunity to be CEO in various things presented themselves, but I always chose where I'd have the biggest impact. And I chose Twitch as opposed to other CEO roles because I felt like no, I was excited about the impact and the size of the platform. Um, but it sort of kind of works, and strangely, given my background, and the fact that I sing and play the piano and I'm create like it just sort of works as something I could see doing, and it's fun to do. Some people are always like, oh, well, when are you going to retire? And it's like, well, I'm kind of having a lot of fun. And, people ask, well, if someone else, came and offered you a job as another CEO, would you take it? And I'm saying, you can't say never, everyone has some number where it's like, well, it's silly that they would pay me that. How could I turn it down? But I can't imagine another job that I would enjoy more, I'm looking forward to this year, but it's a lot of fun. Um, you know, so that's the high level answer.
When you get that number, you can just replace me as CEO. It's fine. I already
There you
have the
go.
streaming
There you
experience,
go.
so we're good.
Perfect.
Um,
Perfect.
so how much can you tease us about like looking into next year? Obviously, y'all are starting to plan next year. What what are we looking forward to next year? Like what are some overarching goals or anything that you can tease us about, what
Yeah.
2024 looks like?
So first of all, many of those things, the stuff we just launched, still need a lot of work, right? The biggest one is, as we do a clips feed and even the live feed, we have to figure out what's the right experience where that becomes more primary as you engage with the app. As you know from the experiment, right now you click over, you click up, you got to work to get there, right? So and so for it to matter, it needs to be more central to how you use the mobile app. So we still have a lot of work to do just in the things we've put out there to make it so that it has the impact that we want it. And none of those things currently have we figured out how do they translate to desktop. And of course, a huge portion of our traffic is on desktop. We were very conscious that said the risk of eroding into time spent watch live streaming was much lower on mobile, while the upside was greater on mobile. Okay, so we said let's start on mobile because the upside is greater, the risk is lower. But of course, desktop is where most people spend their time on Twitch. Um, but I don't want to hurt where people spend their time today. So,
Right.
but all these things still now. The thing, if I had to pick the one thing that I'm most intrigued by, where I don't have the answer, but I know I've brainstormed lots of ideas, um, it's going further with collaboration. I think Stream Together is just the beginning tool. I think you highlighted the benefit of short form content for discovery. Um, I've often used this kind of analogy when I talk to people lately, where I said, suppose you have two friends. So I'll start by saying, finding a streamer you like is like finding a friend. It takes time. It's not necessarily love at first sight. You spend time together, and eventually, slowly, they just become part of your life. and you realize, oh, and I often analogize this because all of our deep, meaningful relationships started from light, casual interactions, right? You just got engaged, and with your partner, you go back in time. It was light, casual interactions that eventually added up to now what will be a lifetime partner. And that's true for all of us. Okay. And finding a streamer you like is like finding a friend. It takes time, it's not just a quick thing. And so, suppose you had two friends that don't know each other, and you want to say, oh, I think you two should get together. You'll like each other. That's a homepage recommendation.
Yeah.
The chances that they become friends is small. Okay. Now, suppose you get together at a bar, both of them have friends there at the same time, at the same time, but as soon as you all show up, you take off and leave. The odds are that's called a raid. Okay. And the odds are they'll eventually go hang out with their other friends because they'll hang for a little while.
Yeah.
Then they'll say, well, I have some other friends here. I'm going to go hang out with them. And that frequently happens in a raid. They watch a little bit and then they go hang out. But if you want them to become friends, you hang out with them for 3 hours in the bar. And then after that, they go, wow, they're kind of fun. They're kind of interesting. Maybe we should get a drink sometime. I think collaboration, since we want people to be on the channel page, the way we solve the discovery problem needs to be with not 20% more collaboration, with 10 times more collaboration. And how can we get signals to find who's good so then we can promote them to other people for collaboration? Right? So if you think about how do you create a TikTok algorithm where the people that are doing really well move faster? The best way is to understand when they're collaborating together who gets more follows, who gets more people show up. Then let's try to get them. I don't know what that is, right? What I know is if I could find a way to increase the rate of collaboration by a factor of 10, okay, I think that is the best way to solve the discovery problem. And it has to work for both big streamers and small streamers. It has to work for big streamers bringing smaller streamers on. But you want to make sure a big streamer wants to know that this smaller streamer is entertaining when they bring them on, right? Because the worst thing is to have someone come on and have them be kind of boring, right?
Yeah.
And there's some streamers that are boring, right? Okay, not all streamers are entertaining, and there has to be a match, right?
Yeah.
So this is the thing that I'm thinking about is that I think can transform Twitch and Discovery because I think it's fun. I think it's easier. It's easier for you and me to sit here and chat. I don't. Did you hear about the stream we did the other night with Esfon and T Pain and Will Neff? Did you hear about that at all?
I well, I mean, I saw some clips.
So that just happened because I was on the Harris Heller stream, and then with my stream, I said, "Oh, let's go watch Esfon." And I was watching Esfon, and then I texted him, and then he called me on Discord, and I said, "Well, let's do stream together." And then once he got it working, he's like, "Well, this was easy." He says, "I'm gonna go get some other folks," and he went and he pinged Wake Wilder and Will Neff, and then it ended up being a 6-hour stream, and then eventually we got T Pain and Low
Oh
Tier
my
God,
gosh.
and it was a blast. Okay, because we were just people were cycling in and out, and we talked about all sorts of stuff, right? Um, but it's a good example where it was impromptu and not planned. And
Yeah.
right now, collaborations are all planned, which makes them so much harder. Now you have to do it as a reporter, right? That's what you do. But coordinating in the way it needs to work, the magic just needs to happen,
Yeah.
right?
And and,
So that's what
and
I'm most excited about.
I think that this is a really good point because, I help streamers and guide them. We get a lot of questions. How do I grow? How do I get discovered? How do I get discovered on Twitch? Because a lot of people are very disinterested in attempting any sort of work or effort outside of the platform. They want to be able to stream. They want to be able to grow. Well, there's a few things that are in your control, like the game or the category that you're in. The using the raid feature, these things that using tags all help to teach the algorithm who your stream should be recommended to. So that's how streamers can appear in the recommended shelf, how they can appear in the homepage shelves. And collaborations are a really great way because it is, first of all, it's an element of networking, which, sounds silly, but like that is what networking is. It is really just kind of finding people that you vibe with, finding people that have the same community as you, and actually being able to show a new audience what you are capable of. Because, yeah, I mean, if I give someone a shout out in my stream, maybe one of my viewers will follow, maybe two people will go follow them, probably not check them out. Like you said, if you rate someone, they might stay for a few minutes, but they're probably hungry and tired because they've been watching my stream. But if you actually bring someone on and you get to see their personality and see how they interact, you are literally forced to watch a new streamer because you're watching your favorite streamer with that streamer. So it's a really powerful way. And I think the guest star being able to incorporate and transition to like a streaming together functionality, super, super smart. I think one question I would have is y'all have squad streaming available to partners, which is multiple streams on one page. At what point does that just integrate or, tie into streaming together, or does it, dissolve completely at this point?
Yeah, and I mean, really, so Stream Together is like a generalization of squad streaming. Okay, and in fact, the part of squad streaming it doesn't do that, the feedback we've gotten fairly consistently is users don't really like, is the 4-up view. That in fact, as human beings, we don't like watching like we can't, our minds can't handle it. It's actually too busy. It's distracting because you're watching this and you have to switch to that, which is I think one of the challenges with squad streaming is the 4-up view is problematic. And so really Stream Together is a generalization of squad streaming because if you want the 4-up view, well, then just freaking put you know, the 4
Or
channels on your
streams
page,
up,
and if you
yeah.
want 6, put 6 channels on your page, right? So, yeah, we were never ever extended, so I see in every way, Stream Together is really just a generalization of squad streaming, and so eventually squad streaming will go away.
Okay. Because I know
Yeah.
that it was partner only, and a lot of people were like, a lot of affiliates kept asking, well, what about squad streaming? What about squad streaming? And I think, like, yeah, I think the ability for, especially because I can set up the stream together and get everyone in the room, but then you can also just pull that same information onto your stream. So why not
Yeah.
just have all the face cams and then one screen of like actually what's happening, right? Like that's much easier to
Yes.
follow.
Yes, and part of this is, building general solutions that solve specific problems. I think this solves the squad streaming problem, but it solves 10 other problems too. Whereas with
Yeah.
squad streaming, they built this solution that solves this very particular problem, and it ended up not like our partners don't use it that much,
Yeah.
so it's not like it had the impact anyone hoped it would.
All right. I have two more questions.
Oh, I
Easy
know one thing I
questions.
was going
Yeah.
to say.
Yeah.
Before you get to the question, I don't know if you already say this, but if you don't, you should, but you probably do. Okay. Um, uh, the thing I always tell people is being a member of community is really important. And in fact, often the way you're going to find people to collaborate with is by finding a streamer you want to watch. But don't think that that's going to work by watching Miz or Esfand if you're just starting out, right? Because they're not going to be collaborating with you if you're a 10 ACCV streamer. Be part of communities that are people that are a little bit bigger than you, right? Find ones you like, or even the same size is wonderful,
Yeah.
right? But I think the biggest thing is you have to find communities. One reason that I think that gaming works so well on Twitch is because when you game, you build social connections that then you often translate to Twitch because you're gaming with these people, you watch them. And outside of gaming, they don't have these ways to build the social connections of other people that are streaming. Okay, so then you don't like in music, it doesn't happen as naturally. It works in gaming, it just happens because that's what happens when you game. But that's the other thing I always tell people. I said, spend time on Twitch. If you tell me I want to be big on Twitch and you don't spend time on Twitch, there's nobody who's big on TikTok that doesn't watch TikTok.
Yeah. My advice is always find people that are around your size. Find people that have the same vibe or energy or even channel rules.
Mhm.
Like if you're family friendly, you're not going to want to like collab with someone who swears all the time. And then, be authentic in your relationships, right? Don't just watch someone stream and be like, "Hey, you're cool. Like let's,
Can
stream
we
together."
collab? Yeah.
Right. Like spend some time and like actually like you said be a part of their community, and that stuff happens naturally and organically, and that's always like the best way to go about it. But I mean,
Yeah.
it's much better to grow with other people than it is to try to like just be a lone wolf. So if that's like
Yep.
any advice for using Twitch is like you said, actually go into other streams and spend time and become a recognized member of that community.
Yes. Yes, and you can't spread out with too many of them because then you're not a recognized member of any community.
Yeah.
You're just a, someone who comes in a little bit.
And when you do actually do that collab, that community gets to recognize you. It's way more fruitful because they actually know who you are. My very first stream, I had 25 viewers because I had spent months and months embedded into other communities. So when I started, people were looking forward to my stream. They knew who I was when I started. And so that's always like some sound advice that I give when it comes to if you want to actually like grow your channel. Okay, so random tangent question, and then I'm gonna come back to this point after this. Can we get some new emotes on the hype train, or let us set our own emotes because they have been the same for like a year at this point? They're not interesting anymore. I need to know.
Yeah. Need to know. So, I hold on, hold on, hold on. I'm gonna send Mike. I think Mike has said yes, but I will send Mike a note now. Hold on. Minton, there he on stream with Loco. She wants more new emotes.
Thank you. Yes, Money Mike,
Emotes, emotes for the hype train. Bingo.
please. I mean, they're not hype anymore. You know, there's nothing to
Yeah,
unlock at this
yeah,
point.
yeah.
So just
I
saying that
think he
needs to
has
happen.
said that there I think he has said that that is in the works. I don't always remember. I don't always remember when he said it has in the works or, "Oh, we should consider it." So I wanna be careful of not, you know, going out on a limb.
That is fair. Okay. Second to last question. When is TwitchCon 2024? Where's it gonna be?
Oh, where's it gonna be?
It's not Dayton, Ohio. We
Unfortunately,
know
it is
that.
not in Dayton, Ohio. It is not in Dayton, Ohio.
Where is it for
Yeah.
real?
Yeah, you want the scoop. You want the
The
scoop,
real
Loco.
the real place right
I'm not
here.
gonna give you the scoop. I'm not gonna give you the scoop, I'm well trained, okay?
It's
Um,
an easy
uh,
question. Easy question
I
right
think
there.
it is an easy question. It's actually an easy question for me to answer. Um, uh, but I will say, once we have everything signed where it is 100%, because all the details are signed, then we're gonna announce. In other words, we're not holding off
Mm,
to announce. We want to announce, as soon as it is like set in stone. Okay. So I know likely where it is. Okay. But all the details have to be worked out and it needs to be set in stone. And that's the only reason
I
I'm
see.
not leaking it. Because once it is literally set in stone, then we're gonna find a time to announce it. And maybe I'll see if they'll give me a green light to leak it on your stream. I'll say, "Can I leak it on Loco's stream?" Okay, this is what I'll do. I'll see if they'll let me just pop in on a stream together and leak it 2 minutes before 5 minutes before it goes live.
No, just send me a DM and I'll get someone else to leak my DMs. And that way we can't get in trouble for leaking
Perfect.
it. I think
There you
that's the
go.
play
There
right
you
there.
go. There you go. Yes. Yes.
All right, last question for you. When streamers come up to you, and I'm sure you've gotten this question, if not, you probably will, like, how do I grow on Twitch, right? Like, what is the advice that you give to someone who's asking you this question?
Yeah. So interestingly, I'm gonna start with some advice that I also give to people who come up about their careers and say, "How do I grow my career?" Right? Um, One thing I say is, well, the thing to remember first and foremost, though, is you have to stay true to what you want to do. That if you do something to grow that you don't like doing, and then you don't get any growth out of it, then you're bummed because there are no guarantees. It's not like if you do this, you will grow. Okay. And same thing with careers. I've often told people in careers, I say, don't take a job that you're going to hate just because you think you'll get a promotion because you may not get that promotion. And in general, if you hate that job, you probably won't get that promotion. So if you don't enjoy what you're doing, don't kid yourself. You won't keep doing it and to do it just because you grow. Now, that's to put the context because a lot of people think, but I don't like that game, but I'll do it to grow. You won't grow probably.
Mm,
And then you'll be unhappy because you did something you didn't enjoy. people can tell. So,
Yeah, for
um,
sure.
so, um, uh, for me, what I usually say is I go to collaboration. I say, first of all, obviously, third party platforms matter, right? Create content for third party platforms. Some people may not be good at creating content for third party platforms, which is one of the reasons why I think collaboration is so important because their answer may be, I'm good at live streaming. I suck at creating YouTube videos, and I don't have a great solution for them then because they may not be good at creating short form content. So, but it's obviously useful to create short form content. As I said earlier, spend time on other people's streams. You have to learn what other people are doing, and collaboration, right? I say collaboration, collaboration. Um, I also, though, encourage them to remember why you started this. Okay. Remember what got you here and be careful of getting caught up in the rat race of always needing to grow because this is a nature of human nature. We keep up with the Joneses. We look at someone and we say, well, I'm as entertaining as them. I should be as big of a streamer as them. You may be as entertaining as them, but you know what? For every person that you're as entertaining of them that are bigger than you, there are 10 people that are smaller than you that are as entertaining as you. Um, and I think one of the biggest challenges that streamers have is this like I need to this churn, and never feeling like they've got there. Never feeling like, okay, I can be living my life. I think this happens in Silicon Valley with people that work in Silicon Valley. It's one reason why we have our policy around remote work culture because I think it's different in different parts of the country. We all have dreams, right? We all have things we want to do. But remember, in the end, your life is about the people you care about and do it because it's working for you. And don't kill yourself and don't overdo it. And don't get obsessed with growing all the time.
Well said. I think that's a very fitting note to end on. I think that's a lot of the things that I, say this to streamers as well. So that gets a CEO of streaming stamp of approval. So
Good.
I
I'm
would
glad. Thank you.
stamp your stream right there.
Stamp of
Um,
approval. Clip that. Everyone clip that, that I got the CEO stamp of approval from Loco. Share that and end it right where I get the CEO stamp of approval.
you pass. There you go. I
There
think
we
that
go. Yeah.
you're fit to be CEO of Twitch. So I
All
approve of
right.
this.
All right, good. I'm gonna hold on. I have to slack my boss that says I'm now officially the CEO of Twitch. I've gotten sign off.
There we go. October 30th, 2023. It only took you, like 7 months, but we got there.
That's
We got
good. I
there.
got there. I got there.
Dan, thank you so much for being on the show. I met you a year and a half ago, I think, when you had visited Austin with a group of folks, and I have seen the transition from exec to understanding the culture and beauty of Twitch. And so I think for me, not speaking for everyone, but I definitely see a lot of positivity going into 2024. I think a lot more hope going into 2024, and definitely looking forward to more conversations, in the future. So thank you so much for
Yeah.
lending us your time.
All right. Thank you, Loco. Thanks for all you do and appreciate it. And thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Dan. Take care.
All right.